accomplished. Do I have any corrections to the agenda?
I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented.
It's been moved to approve the agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say yes.
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 Yes. All opposed, same sign, or say no. Okay, the agenda is approved. Okay, now we're ready for the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections to the consent agenda?
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda as it's presented.
Okay, it's been moved to approve the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
I have a second.
Okay, all in favor, please.
Can we have a discussion?
Oh, sure.
I would like to recognize, I see that Dan Ballman's turned in his resignation or retirement, not retirement. And I'd like to send a shout out to Dan. I know we worked across the hall from each other and has done a lot of good things for that program and put in quite a few years for USD 49.
I would like to also chime in on that he has done an outstanding job and and continued to build the program for the media center for getting the information out. So we appreciate his hard work, that's for sure. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or say yes.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No. Oh, sorry.
You're voting both
I say
ways.
that all the time. I get so,
You're in it.
Okay, it's approved.
yes.
Okay, now it's time for our public forum. This is an opportunity for our public to address the board. We ask that you keep it within 3 minutes, and speakers we may or may not address you or ask questions, but we ask that the public respect the 3-minute rules. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to address the board? Okay, we'll move on. We're ready for district communications. Mr. Wilson.
Okay, I have a few things. I'll try to be quick as well. First of all, I want to recognize Dan as well, on his retirement. Also want to make sure we recognize Bobby Dinkle, who's a long-time teacher at Hayes Middle and is someone who's put in some outstanding work. So just want to make sure we covered her as well. On my report, first of all, I want to talk a little bit just about some enrollment numbers and understand that everything that we're giving you is almost what we think is accurate. Today is actually the day that we submit all our numbers, and those up until just probably 30 minutes ago, we were just doing a lot of work to get this all done. So if you look at all of our elementaries, where our numbers are landing for all of our elementaries. Very unique, and I think very interesting is Roosevelt, Wilson, and O'Loughlin. And this is, man, we checked this like 16 times. They all have the exact same numbers of students, which is unbelievable. So we did see a slight decrease at all of our elementaries, not a great decrease, but a slight decrease in our elementary students. Buildings from last year, but really not very significant. Hayes Middle, of course, they are full to the gills as well. I think they're actually have 2 less students than they had last year, but still very full and packed in. Our numbers right now, as you can see, Hayes High, that's where our large groups are right now. We actually saw an increase of over 60 students at Hayes High. So that's really where our growth has been for this year. But overall, Numbers look like, as I reported at a previous meeting, we're slightly up, not a huge amount, but definitely stable or slightly up. So virtual numbers, I think if we look also at our virtual school numbers, we're seeing some pretty good numbers there as well. So there's been some changes in the virtual program.
Do you want us to hold our questions until
No,
the end?
you definitely ask them. We'll move on to just lunch count.
In the elementary schools, it looks like largely, if we're looking at is it 3 sections at O'Laughlin, Wilson, and Roosevelt, and mostly 2 at Lincoln?
Yes.
Or all 2 at Lincoln?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do have 4 sections at Roosevelt for kindergarten. That's
Oh, yeah,
that is the
okay.
one place that we do have 4 sections. That's only in kindergarten.
Okay.
It does look like also your freshman year is one with the highest number at high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's our large class, and so that's good. We've got them for a few more years, so we'll be able to count them. So that's a large group, though. That's a large group, and you have to look at right behind them is an 8th grade group that's really large. So what our upper grades are going to be stacked for a few years. But with the new facilities, hopefully we can hopefully we can get them in there before they move on out. So
Yeah.
that's the plan.
So on
Yeah, 5th grade is almost as big.
Yeah.
the PTRs for the classrooms for elementary, are they between 18 and 20 or
Yeah, I would
mostly
say
under 20?
Most of our classes are anywhere from 18 up to 23 is maybe.
Yeah, and the average on the internal spreadsheet that we work on is 20.3. And those numbers might look a little different if you look at it on any given day, because this was the September 20th count. We've lost a bit since then, so it's just totally fluctuating, but same ballpark. But 20.3 is what it's showing in elementary.
Okay.
A little more difficult to get at middle school and high school with the different classes.
So is that close to last year's numbers?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is that we're probably slightly up a
Up.
few students,
Okay.
but definitely not down. So I think we're very stable, which is always a good sign.
And I apologize, the acronym PTR is pupil-teacher ratio. So we're notorious about having acronyms, so sorry about that.
What you're looking at now is a chart for our free and reduced count for lunches. Just thought this was kind of interesting, just tracking the number of students who qualify for free and reduced, or at least make application and receive those services. You can see in this year we've had a pretty big jump. Why don't you stay on that one for just a little bit. If you look at this year, 22-23 school year, clear to the right, we've had a huge increase in free and reduced applications, and so that's a good thing, but also indicative of what we're experiencing. So.
But
Have they changed the calculating formula at
I
all?
don't think any of the requirements have changed. What has changed this year is we went back to the old process for application. That, for the last 2 years we had.
You're following free
we
lunches.
didn't have any well, we did have to go through the process, but it wasn't required to receive free lunches. Everyone received them, regardless of economic status. But this year we went back to the process of requiring the application to receive the free or reduced price for lunches. But you're seeing that we've jumped quite a few. So thought it was information I thought I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of. And then just the last, I just included this as well. This is just kind of shows you by building where we're at as far as our percent free and our percent reduced. Of course, Lincoln is our highest free school at 62%, as well as 11% reduced. But for the most part, all our other schools are staying kind of right in that 30%, 32, all the way up to Hayes Mill at 37. For the most part, we're all fairly solid.
Now, our partner schools, like the private schools, they have some that, which school are those counted in?
So the private school and like our preschool kids, special needs preschool kids that aren't attending like ECC, those all get counted under Lincoln also. So these numbers don't necessarily include them because we're looking at the enrollment building or the attendance building. But then on a lot of other KSDE reporting, you'll see things that make Lincoln look higher than they are, like IEP count and things like that. KSDE reports are going to overinflate them because they're counting all of those birth to 3, 3 to 5, and then also private school kids.
So they're all counted at Lincoln?
Right.
Okay.
There's not a different place you can put them?
No,
You got time to the school?
No, there's two different ways to do it. You can disperse them out among all of your buildings, and then we have all of the buildings that are a little bit off. We choose to put them all in Lincoln, and so then we know some reports, we just have to back them out because those numbers don't make sense. But again, these are the head count enrollment at that building, so it's pretty solid.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on, just wanted to give you some information on enrollment.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Wanted to follow up on the branding survey, just to get everyone to, as we have not sent out the survey as of yet. We will be sending that survey out. What I also want to make sure the board understood is because of maybe some feedback that we've received, we want to maybe after sending the survey out, form a committee. And we feel like once that we get the feedback, we'll form this committee that will receive that feedback and then have some conversations about where we want to go and what's our intent with the information. Our plan is to include on this committee 3 to 4 alumni members, some senior citizens who maybe have some generational ties to being Hayes High families, as well as 3 to 4 of them. We'll try to include some students, some parents, current parents. We'll also include some teachers, middle school and high school teachers, some coaches. We'll look at some community members and board members. If you're interested in being on this committee, you can let us know. I do feel like we probably have to honor the 3 at this because there would be some discussions about some things that we might end up doing. So we'll probably need to keep that to 3. And then we'll also have high school and middle school administration as well as some Rockwell administration. So that is the plan. We're planning to send out this survey probably later this week once we get everything lined up, and then we'll be working on getting some people to form that committee. And I'll give you, we'll meet before we have the committee meeting, so I'll let you know when that's going to occur. So if you are interested in serving as a board member, please let Jess or myself know, and then if we have more than 3, we'll have to maybe figure out who the 3 are at some later point. So just see. It will takes maybe a couple evenings. I'm not really sure exactly how many evening meetings we'll have, but we'll have at least 1, possibly 2, to just look at the feedback and discuss what we feel feels best. Any questions?
Yeah, how are we sending it out?
How
How are we sending the survey out?
We'll be sending it out, how we send out to all our parents through what we call it, thrill share, it'll be text.
The one that comes.
Yeah, they'll get a message with a link that they go to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will it be out on like our webpage that some general people can access?
We're not going to put it on our webpage. We have had some people communicate with us, and we plan to, those people that have communicated this, as long as we can verify that they have some ties to Hayes. There's some people that we're not really always sure if they have, and topics like this do bring in people who maybe want to weigh in and maybe not have actual ties to Hayes, but I think we just have to verify that everyone that we've received communication from, we will send the link directly to them.
But if they have 489 ties and they want to participate,
For sure. I would say ties as in, meaning they
Attended, yes.
attended Hayes High. Yeah,
Or currently live here?
or currently live there, yes.
Okay.
We'll try to honor as, and I think, I would guess, I've received some emails and I have kept those and we'll try to send the link out directly to those individuals. But there's a few that I have some questions and we'll need to probably talk to some people just to verify if we can verify exactly their location. Because some people didn't always include their physical address or their location.
The sheriff.
Or their graduating class, or?
Yeah. But we'll try to honor everyone's intent and give everyone the feedback they desire.
And just to be clear, this is about all the schools and what that means.
Yes,
And
I think it is. Yeah, it definitely is. Of course, when we were, part of the intent is, but as we build this new high school and move our middle school onto that new campus, we've got some transition going with those schools. So the major focus of this is the high school and the middle school.
Right.
Yeah,
Could we add some elementary teachers to that?
definitely. If that's what they
It's getting to
desire.
be a
I
pretty
think
big committee, though.
sometimes if
If-
they want to be a part of it.
Okay, yeah. Maybe we
And
could have
sometimes
some.
they can be a parent and maybe an elementary staff too. I don't know if that's.
Okay.
We'll work on trying to get that committee. It'll take us a little while to form that committee.
I would like to be on that committee, so,
Well-
and if we do have more than 3, can't we just handle it like we did the strategic plan
Well, I think
committee?
I'll ask on that. I want to make sure we do it right. Because this
Definitely.
one might include some decision making. So we'll get some guidance on that. What's best.
Because I'm assuming you'll have more than just 3 board members that
Yeah, I don't know.
want to be on
I
it.
don't know. And last, I just wanted to congratulate Hayes Middle School. Mr. Albers notified me that his school was selected to be as a $2,500 winner in the Choose My School Supply Drive that is being funded by the Kansas Treasurer's Office. Lynn Rogers, who is our state treasurer, will be at Hayes Middle School on October 14th to present the check. And any board member who does wish to, I think it's 1 o'clock? Is it?
Yeah, 1:15 is what I think.
Yeah, 1:15 at Hayes Middle. If you'd like to come and be a part of that check presentation, Phil, you are definitely free to do that. I think one of the cool things and something I wanted to highlight is Mr. Albers said they will use their funds to stock their school pantry for kids and families who need assistance. So I thought that's
This year,
cool.
yep.
That $2,500, and that's what it'll be.
You said 1 o'clock, but what was the date again?
1:15,
1:15 on what date?
October 14th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this Friday.
Well, I think he deserves a round of applause for what he
Whoa, let's give him a round. There you go, Mr.
On the pool.
Can you answer the phone?
Wilson, it will be at the high school right after that.
Well, I'm gonna say that.
Wow.
I'm getting back to that. Also,
That was Tom's thunder.
anyway, your round of applause is coming too. Not Mr. Henderson, but Sue Ann Tebow's classroom was selected as one of the, and I feel bad, they were only $1,000 winners, but that's still pretty nice. From the Choose My School Supply Drive, Lynn Rogers, once again, will present the check to Mrs. Tebow and her class, I assume, at 1:45? At 1:45 at Hayes High School, and particularly Mrs. Tebow's classroom, I assume.
Yeah.
So feel free to join that as well. So let's give Mrs. Tebow. Okay. So, and that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. I think our next up is Mr. Hip.
Just to do a quick run through, you can disconnect and pull it up, or you can, yeah, just open that first one. So the ESSA building expenditure report, I think we're in year 4 or 5 of this, but basically as a part of when No Child Left Behind turned to ESSA, one of the requirements was the state has to report out basically all the operational expenditures. And so then that means in order for the state to be able to do that, each district has to report those operational expenditures. So what you're seeing are all expenditures minus capital improvement and durable equipment purchases. So it's all instructional staff, support staff, supplies, heating and air, those things that it takes to run the school on a day-to-day basis outside of any capital improvement or capital expenditure. So we break that out by each one of the attendance centers. There's a few things to note because we do that. So any of the federal expenditures for like 6B, which is the special education federal funding, and then title expenditures, those get broken out across all of the buildings based on head counts, basically. Then we've got, because we have ECC and the Head Start collaboration there, then all of those Head Start funds are prorated out across all elementaries based on enrollment at the elementaries, because we don't know whether we don't know which building those kids are going to go to. And then virtual and 4-year-old at risk, or what used to be called 4-year-old at risk, was now preschool, pre-K at risk. Those funds get broke out across all elementaries as well. So I didn't think about it until just now. So when you refresh, you'll have the last 2 years also, so you can look at trend. You'll notice one thing. This is the first year that we report. So we're reporting on last year's total expenditures. So this is FY22 numbers. FY22 was the first year that virtual school was its own building number. So when you go back to, if you want to compare it to FY21 and fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 20, those school years, all of those virtual expenditures would have been accounted for at the high school because they were high school age kids, starting with fiscal year 22, so the 21-22 school year. All of those then are reported separately for the virtual school. Other than that, the changes from year to year have been real minimal, very minimal. Most of that would account for very tenured teachers who might be higher on the pay scale when they retire, and if we hire a young person, then that will affect these reports because a lot of 90% of the expenditures are salary and benefits. 80-something.
Is there any other questions from the board members? Mr. Brooks, are you still there?
I am.
Just checking, sir.
The only thing I would add is that I think it's important to note, and this is, we did our needs assessment back in August, and that was a process that we went through. But also understand, we're consistently always doing those needs assessments throughout. We don't just always just do it in August. I mean, this is something where you're looking at expenditures, and what it's costing to educate a kid in our district. And so I think that's important just to note that this is part of needs assessment planning as we're moving.
So are these funds tracked? They're just tracked and then you put them in or you just divide it up by the number of kids in those students in those?
Yeah, so
School.
throughout the year. So again, we're looking arrears. We're looking at the end of last year, total expenditures through that year. Through all of our accounting, we have tagged everything gets tagged out. We can track it back to different buildings and prorate it across. And then so those total expenditures are getting divided by what were the September 20th numbers. So it'd be the audited ones, like right now, earlier, they were talking about our September 20th numbers. Once they get audited, then those are the final audited FTE is what these expenditures would get divided across to get the average expenditures per student in those buildings.
So on that, I'm just picking on Lincoln. So we spent $4 million. Those funds were spent at that school?
Yes. Yeah, total expenditures, again, outside of any capital or durable equipment. So these are operational expenditures. There was $4 million was spent at Lincoln. 1.9 or almost 1.1 of that was federal money. 2.9 of it state and local money, and then you divide that across the number of kids to come up with that average of 10,770 per student.
So that would include like migrant and ESL,
Correct.
where that building uses more of that. And so are you able to count the salaries of all those teachers and things like that?
So like for migrant, because we have one, the answer is yes, we can do it both ways. So for migrant, because we have one staff member, her expenditures get divvied out based on how many students she has at each building.
Right.
Whereas, say, some of the at-risk money, if we're using it to buy programs that are best practices, then we divide out by the amount of time that each teacher would spend providing those services. So it kind of depends on which service, but yes, as much as humanly possible, we prorate it exactly to those building expenditures. There are some things that we just have to say, oh, well, that gets divided across every building based on the total number of kids, because we don't have a good way to track, we may not have a way to track storm wastewater. We have one line. We divide that across every kid.
So like, for example, the differences in the elementary schools, there's a difference has to do probably with the experience of the educators, probably the biggest, causing the biggest difference.
Most likely.
Okay.
It could have a little something to do with like what Mr. Park is saying, with maybe there's a few more migrant kids, so you may have a little bit
Funding.
more migrant staff, FTE in there, or title staff, or special education staff, or something like that, if they have a higher number.
Okay.
We have some categorical special education programs, so if you look at like Roosevelt, their number's higher, but it's because we've got more staff in there working with specific needs for students.
But we have title in every building now for elementary.
Yes, there's FTE across all the.
And does it go all the way up to high school or just middle school?
Just elementary.
Just elementary. Okay. Any other questions, board members? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hipp. Okay, we're now at number 5, which is action discussion items. Request for approval for Wilson Elementary HVAC upgrades.
Okay, tonight, this is, we visited about this last meeting, but this is where we're looking at moving the HVAC upgrades to Wilson, looking at delaying the high school project for a year, and then moving over to Wilson based upon with the bond passing and the design work that is still taking place on the going to be middle school. We're just still not where we need to be, and we feel like we can maybe utilize the time to get moving on Wilson. So it's been designed. There's still some work being done because it's a little bit of a complicated situation. I think Lance Loganville from BCS is here, and he can probably dive into some of this a little deeper. So I'll just let Lance.
Yeah, good evening.
Welcome.
Yeah, don't want to make this common practice of me coming up here all the time, but yeah, no, Ron did mention it. Currently, when we kicked off the high school project under all the different contractors and so forth, we didn't know if a bond would be passed during that time, and we knew that there was HVAC upgrades that needed to happen at the high school. So that project kicked off before the bond was approved. It was a 2-year phase project. Phase 1, we did end the beginning of this school year, which covered not so much the classroom area of the high school, but more of the cafeteria, gyms, a few classrooms. But when the bond passed, we realized, and Rusty in the district kind of spoke up and said, hey, what are we going to do here? How is things going to change with the bond? Ultimately, we're not 100% sure how things are going to fully change because they haven't fully put out a design, but we do know that classroom sizes are going to be adjusted at the high school, which ultimately adjusts the equipment size that was selected for the high school. So it was brought to our attention since we provided the equipment, how can we utilize this equipment? What do we do going forward without putting all this stuff in and just having it being tore back out? So what we're proposing is to postpone/extend the high school project until we do have a firm design of what's going to happen at the high school. Hopefully we know that sooner rather than later. But ultimately, we do know by right now that the equipment size for there is not going to work in there. So what do we do with that equipment? Well, there is a lot of other bond work going on, and that equipment can be utilized elsewhere. So the thought process is, how can we prioritize Wilson as being kind of the next project to take on? Integrated consulting engineers put together plans and drawings back in January of 2022. They were issued for construction then. We went ahead and put together pricing based on those drawings. We know that Wilson is also going to change towards the end of the bond as far as what is in that school, as far as as far as kids and student populations going to that administration building going forward. So we do know that that's going to be redesigned, but in order to get a project on the ground moving with the current price changes that are happening, with the equipment lead times that's going on, if we want to try to do something this summer with Wilson, we need to start jumping on it now so we can procure stuff in a timely fashion. With that, within this project, we are also working with the design engineer to redesign Wilson Elementary School, which at that point, once we do have that redesign, we will then evaluate to see if some of the resources can be utilized from the high school. So this project price that we have in front of you is not 100% firm, but it's based on the information we know now to get us mobilized, essentially.
It won't go higher.
Yeah, it shouldn't go higher. I mean, if anything, we hopefully would have some deducts going on within the project if we're able to actually reutilize some of the project or equipment that we have at the high school. If we can't end up utilizing that, it's already been passed on or is going to be passed on to the bond team to try to utilize that equipment elsewhere. So, but that's essentially what we're looking at doing here, and we're going to try to utilize the Greenbush Cooperative within that we hold, which our products and services are competitively bid through that Greenbush Cooperative, and that's what we're utilizing for this project at Wilson. Is there questions I can help entertain, or Ron and Rusty, I'm sure would.
So the equipment at the high school, we're looking at getting different equipment with the bond. Instead of the same rooftop units, doing something different, like heat pumps or something, or the same?
Nope, it's going to be the same. So it's going to be the same system type that's there. It'll be compatible with what's already been installed at the high school. It's just different sizes of equipment. So instead of a piece of equipment that serves maybe half this room, we need something that serves this entire room, ultimately. And that one single piece of equipment that's already been procured doesn't have the capacity to handle that, essentially.
But we haven't decided what type of assistance is going to be at the high school yet?
The system, since the system is already...
I'm talking about the new high school.
Oh, the new high school.
Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with this.
Okay, it doesn't, they're not, okay.
That's a whole different.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're talking about middle school
Yeah.
when it gets.
Yeah,
Okay.
the current high school now, the plan for moving it to the middle school, essentially.
So we currently have, and those, we didn't pull those units out, obviously. So the
No.
old stuff is still there.
Yes, half of the
And
old
that
stuff is
was
still there.
heat pumps,
Yes, water source heat pumps. Yep.
and they're not ground source or water source.
No.
Okay, so we're now going to be adding, we're going to be putting the same, we're going from a boiler system at Wilson to a rooftop system?
Yeah,
So currently, the system that is at Wilson is a hot water chill water system. That hot water chill water system is basically dying and has been, and that's why the plans were drawn up. We were actually, at the time that we were starting to bid the high school, we were going to bid Wilson at that time. And we were doing it through other funds that, and Chris can tell me exactly which funds, because I'll probably get that messed up, but they were federal funds that we had received. When the bids came in on the high school, they were high enough that we realized we weren't going to be able to do Wilson. We also were doing the secured entrance at Wilson at that time, and we were switching everything over to water-sourced heat pumps. That was the design that was selected for the building to ultimately go to. So the current entry, the new secured entry that's there, is heat pumps, water-sourced heat pumps. We're having to use them different than what they're intended to do, because the intent was to get by a half a year and then rebid it this summer. Well, then when the bond passed, everything changed, so we didn't bid it right away. We're to the point now that we need to bid it, and that's why we sent it out for bid with the current design the way it is, knowing that we may have to make some modifications to it in order to meet what the intended purpose of Wilson would be, and utilize the time that we're saving there, or taking off the high school, for them to do the high school design, so that when we put the equipment in at the high school, it's correct for what its intended purpose is.
So we're going to have to redesign the roof system to maintain those.
Let's say that again.
We'll have to have new braces and stuff put in to support those rooftop units like we did at the high school?
The structural at the high school?
No, at the Wilson.
At Wilson, yeah, there is.
We'll have to do it again?
Structural, well, no structural rework has been done at Wilson.
Right, but we will have to with the new
But
systems.
yes, in order to support the equipment that will be on the roof, there
And that's
is
pretty
built-in
expensive.
costs for
Yeah.
that, yeah.
But that cost has been, the price you have has already been, that's.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a total cost, with the redesign fee in there as well. And like Ron mentioned too, is that price should only come down as long as we get a project in place and approved as soon as we can. If this extends over the next half a year, that those prices are gonna change. Right now, the market is just so volatile, that's just.
But did we already get those prices for the high school? I thought that's what we're doing, we're changing it and moving it to Wilson. That's not the case?
We're going to basically, Dave's here with Glassman. Glassman's basically contracted with us right now to do the project at the high school. They've agreed to suspend that contract and extend it a year so that we can get the design on the high school done. So currently what we're looking at doing is then using them on the Wilson project, and if we can reutilize any of the equipment in Wilson, we will. If they're also, as they do the design, we're going to see how much of the current equipment we have that can be used in the current high school also. So keep in mind, this is sort of a moving target. We're sitting here trying to do a design at the same time we're trying to pass this, and that's a little bit unorthodox, but in order to keep it moving and make it to where we're utilizing the equipment and matching the bond that we currently have going, that's sort of the position we're in right now.
And you chose Wilson because you looked at the rest of the buildings in our district that we were redesigning and renovating. And you said, this is the one. This is the one that needs it the most. This is the most.
At this time, it's the one that needs it. We've addressed Roosevelt. O'Laughlin is a actual four-pipe system, the way it's being utilized. It has some issues, but not near the issues that Wilson does. Roosevelt, we went through. Lincoln, it's its own animal because it's steam, and then we're using split systems in there to basically compensate for the air conditioning. As long as, we don't hit an issue with boiler tubes like we did here, or anything that way, it should be pretty stable for the next 3 or 4 years too.
But we are changing out the new system we put in the office, or we're keeping it?
No, it'll stay.
It'll stay?
It'll tie to the existing.
It was designed to tie to the current project that we're looking at.
Okay.
Now, when you do this to Wilson, is school going to be in session and?
No, it'll be done this summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I read in the.
Glassman may do a little bit after hours, but nothing that should disrupt any sort of class function or anything like that.
It'd be similar to what we done at Roosevelt in the high school, where they came in after hours and put in some of the structural steel, ran some of the line sets, done some of that kind of stuff ahead of time, so when they hit the summer, they could go right on through and get done and completed before school started.
So when they're done, if this gets approved and they go to Wilson, Wilson's Hvac's taken care of, it's gonna be, or is it gonna be a phase 1, phase 2, and then we remodel the building and things, and then we have to, I mean, how far, is it gonna be a done deal, or is it gonna be 3/4 done deal?
The HVAC will be a done deal.
Okay.
And it'll be designed, they're looking at right now, the admin got together with DLR, looked at the intended purposes of what's gonna happen with Wilson when we get in there. So what we're currently doing is we're trying to design it for its current and its future need, and have it to when we get completed, it'll work for both. And there's some things we can do with the outside air and some other things to compensate, because once the students are out of there, the load's going to go down, and it's just as bad to have two larger units as it is to have undersized units. So we're trying to come up with a design that's going to meet both needs and work for its intended purpose. And that's the engineers doing all that.
How are we doing that when we don't have plans for Wilson? How do we know what to
The DLR and them have got with them, and there's some
But you're gonna use the same structure.
intended plans
Yeah,
as to how it's.
the walls at Wilson are not changing. That's the difference between the Wilson project and the Hayes current high school that will become a middle school, is we're not moving any walls. We're putting people into spaces that are currently, and we'll make those adapt to the space that we use.
So we won't come back, so we got to make a design change and change the HVAC again. You've got to figure it out that it's going to be within those
We are not
walls.
changing the HVAC.
Right.
You get this done, and it's really not about the administrative, this is really about really getting our kids and our staff heat and air that's adequate over the next 2 years for our Wilson Elementary students. Well, by the time it's done, it'll be 2 years. So, and that's what's really the most important thing. I mean, of course, when we move in, we're going to want some heat and some cool air as well, but it's about fixing that issue for them right now.
But as we spend those kinds of funds, it's about the longevity of money spent. And I want to make sure, we're looking down the future. I would appreciate more of the futuristic look than the current, because we're going to use that for a long time, and that's where we need to think.
I anticipate that's going to be our administrative office for the next 50
Sure.
years. So I do think that we've looked at that. And also, the reason I think you also have to appreciate what has been done with the high school, because we didn't want to put equipment, we could go ahead and put that equipment in, but then when the middle school says, no, we need this, we might have to move people. I think we have been very smart and efficient about understanding that that would not be wise.
Right, but I would also, when we're moving to Wilson, I think the same scope or the same focus needs to be there too.
Yeah.
My other question is, of the equipment that was phase 2 equipment that we're going to move and potentially use at the Wilson, we looking at half the equipment, 3/4, I mean, just ballpark guessing?
Yeah, right now, that could be reused or reused
I mean,
somewhere.
that you.
Yeah, so I think we installed 38 total water source heat pumps, and there's a total of 99 at the high school. So there's about 50 to 60 water source heat pumps that ultimately we're trying, or the team is trying to find a location for those that will work in the future.
Keep in mind, part of them will still
Be
work
used
at
at
the
high school.
Or at the current high
Yeah.
school.
Right, yeah.
So to change all that from the high school, and Glassman had to suspend their contract, what is the cost to the district? I mean, there's got to be a cost. Zero change cost? It's just a wash.
When the redesign gets figured and we have to procure new equipment per that, there would be something there at
I
that
thought you
point.
were talking about Glassman charging us when you said suspend the contract.
Well, because we've done some design work already, we've already paid vendors to come in there and reinforce the roof, and we're changing that. So we'll have to do that again.
No, so the rooftop equipment is all set. That is all, the stuff that's on the roof is staying.
There's no changes in that.
Nope. It's just the classrooms within the heat pumps. So anything that's already been done as part of phase one, and there may be a small amount of activity still that happens at the high school this summer, depending.
So there's not been any phase two started or worked on?
There's been some phase two. Dave would know better on that than I would. But there's been a little bit, but it hasn't been anything that can't stay where it's at. There's nothing that's going to change on what we've done so far.
There's no duplicate in design. We won't have to do it again on some of the design work on the roof.
As far as what's on the roof?
With the things that we've already done?
There shouldn't be
Okay.
any design change.
That's good.
Mr. Park,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to approve through the Greenbush Educational Service Center Purchasing Cooperative Program HVAC upgrades to Wilson Elementary for $2,407,773.
Second.
We've got we had a motion and a second. Mr. Viner had the motion, and I heard Lori, Mr. Brooks, had the second. All in favor, say yes.
Any more discussion?
Oh, any more discussion? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more discussion? Okay. All in favor, say yes.
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 All opposed, say no.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Excellent information.
Okay, now we're on 5.2, updated BOE medication policy.
Yeah, this is Jessica Rowe, who is our lead district nurse. She came and was asking about having the opportunity to have Narcan, which is a life-saving drug. So if someone is suffering from an opioid overdose, it will reverse those effects almost immediately. And she was wondering about having that in our buildings, at all of our buildings, just in case we ever have that situation. But we also felt like it was important that we actually have a policy that we'll have in place, so it kind of covers the district in terms of and employees for those people who would administer that. So what you have in front of you tonight is what is called Naxalone Policy, which is I think the true term for Narcan. You hear Narcan more often. But this just gives, we plan to put it in all of our buildings, at the nurse, in the nurse's office. And should we ever, hopefully not, but if we ever have those situations, we would be able to administer Narcan by approving this policy.
So if not, we're waiting on EMTs to show up?
Yeah, I mean, all emergency, what we've heard is all our emergency personnel in
They're all
the city
trained.
and in the county carry Narcan on their body and can administer it. But this just gets it quicker should we ever have that unfortunate situation.
So this says, I think, or at least Jessica, her request statement said that it would be provided by nurses, or the nurses would be the ones who are training?
Yes.
Do we have a nurse in each building all the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
A health staff.
Yeah,
So we've got RN, one LPN, and then one nurse's aide.
Okay.
And so there's somebody from that department in every building, or in the
Yeah,
building.
it could be trained.
Okay.
And if we have somebody sick?
Well, I think the thing is they do, that's been the beauty of, with Jessica's position as the lead district nurse, we have a little flexibility, so we actually have two staff at Hayes High, and she serves as the lead district nurse, so if we're
Short, we got covered.
we have some coverage.
Okay.
If we have more than one gone, then it's difficult, but we try to always have someone in all buildings most of the time.
And I should clarify, the main campuses, so all of the elementaries, ECC, middle school, high school, we don't necessarily have a nurse like every other spot. We
Right,
might have
at
kids,
the
but we have
Hadley
people-
building or,
Right.
yeah.
but we have people that are assigned that would be the ones there.
And that's something we just did 2 years.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, we fully staffed, it all the way.
Now, if somebody should have to administer this drug of some type, is there somebody like an MD or somebody like
Well,
that?
and I would tell you, if we are administering, and we're calling 911, so there'll be emergency personnel
On the way, they're on
who
the
will
way.
be on the scene
Okay, good.
within minutes, so we would have someone.
Okay, good.
Does this have a shelf life, and is it
It does have a
expensive?
shelf life of 2 years, so I think we've secured a price for $50.
It's like $500 to have it in.
Yeah, I think $50 a dose or something.
Yeah.
And we can handle it like all our other medication? It's just
Yeah,
locked away,
Yeah, yeah.
just like the others?
There's no negative effect. If you didn't need it, it's not like you have to accurately.
It's gonna be like the effort pins and everything else.
It's a nasal spray. No, there's not much liability in it because it's not dangerous in and of itself. But if,
Okay.
when you read the articles and kids picking up things that somebody dropped and just touching that and getting it on their skin
Yeah,
causes
yeah,
a problem.
yeah.
The need for the policy on it versus other drugs, is that just because we're trying to cover the district or in case of legality?
And specifically, now what do you mean by that, Ken? As far as?
Well, I mean, what's our reason for having to put a specific policy for it?
Well,
I
I
mean,
think,
I'm just curious.
well, I think that the reasoning behind it is Narcan is where it's probably a little, I'm trying to think of something that would, I don't know if we have any other drugs that we administer that are kind of what we would consider life-saving. So I think that's.
Well, the Efferent pins, I mean,
Yeah, but that is usually, the EpiPens are usually brought to us by family.
They're carrying them. Yeah.
They sign off.
Yeah.
This is totally
I
us
understand.
administering the drug on our own.
Yeah, that's a great, so it's really more similar to like the AEDs, and we have a policy for that on
Defibrillator.
having AED,
Yeah, that's
running
good.
a defibrillator, it's probably more like that.
So legally, we can administer this as a life-saving
Yeah,
and not
the
have to worry
policy-
about contacting
policy-
parents and stuff like
The policy you
that?
have in front of you is a policy that several districts, and this is fairly new, in our region, maybe is in some of on the coast, it's maybe been around longer, but we're starting to see it here. I think I highlighted in something to the board about a situation in Manhattan at the start of the school year. So we're starting to see it, and so districts have, developed these policies. We've put several of those policies and kind of made the policies that fit our district. And so that's the policy you have in front of you.
Hopefully, we'll never have to use it.
Hopefully not.
are we looking to approve this the next meeting, or this is the first
Yeah,
read?
this is,
First
The
read?
first read.
yeah, first read.
Okay.
If you had any questions, specific questions?
I just wanted to make sure, because it seemed like we went over it really, really fast. I'm looking through the CDC's explanation that you linked in the info, and there's no side effects if you're not overdosing on opioids. So it's not a high-risk save.
No. It'll save a life, but it won't hurt you if you didn't really need it, and we administer this. But it will save your life if you are suffering from opioid overdose.
Okay.
So I consider that probably a win-win.
Probably
The
good.
other thing that you have also in front of you, while as we were looking at adding this policy, Jessica Rowe looked at our current board policy on medications. She also highlighted some changes, and you have those as well, on our current medication policy, and she's stricken some words and added some words on that policy as well. So, like I said, like we talked about, it's not necessarily something we're going to do tonight as far as passing it, but if you have any specific questions about that, I'd be glad to entertain those, and I'll make sure Jessica, if you have anything, she's not with us tonight, but she might be able to be at the next meeting.
Okay.
Well, I think it's excellent an idea, and anything that's life-saving, I'm for,
Yeah.
that's for sure. And these drugs, you know, a lot of people choose to ignore their existence, or whatever the situation may be. But I'm telling you that they are very rampant in this area, and they are making them now so that they look like candy, which you saw in the articles.
And that's one of the reasons why in a lot of districts, you might see that they only do it in the middle school, high school. We feel like probably it's to our advantage to have it in elementary, just because of just situations that some of the, like Lori is saying, they just look like candy. And sometimes it's not intentional, but kids sometimes in the wrong spot at the wrong time and get access to something that's good. So we want to make sure that we have ourselves covered.
So it can be administered by somebody who's not a nurse, if they've been trained?
You know, that's a good question. I think our intent is that the nurses will only administer, no other school personnel will administer.
We just don't have full-time nurses at all the buildings.
I think she did talk about like secretaries, maybe getting to know the secretaries doing it
But the
too.
people who.
Like other medication that we deal with,
Yeah, we have someone who is the go-to for that.
if they're not there.
Right.
Okay.
I think,
Yes.
check on that for sure.
You said LPN, you said there's an RN and LPN and nurse's aide,
Right.
and they share all the buildings,
And
so
a
that
lot
they're
of the
fully staffed.
secretaries would probably get trained up too,
Okay.
I think.
But they're not, it's not the whole time it's covered, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I thought that's.
Well, that's
Which
what
we
my
don't
question
have
was
someone on
earlier.
staff at every building all the time.
That's what.
Right,
said
but they're
earlier.
not
There's health
a-
staff, it's
a
not
nurse.
necessarily an RN.
Okay.
But they're trained-
The
but-
training is by an RN.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be an RN, because it is a nasal spray, and it's
Okay,
safe.
And
Good
those
discussion.
people, they administer medications for students who come
Right.
on a daily basis, so I'm sure that probably is.
same
yeah,
situation.
same situation.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Think we can move on? Okay, the next one is Ksb Fall Conference. I think I'll go ahead and start on this. We have an opportunity to go. Jessica sent that out early in July, I think the first time, and then we talked about it, and it's been on other events, but I believe it's November 11th through the 13th. And, but they are asking, the KSB is needing to, do a lot of their meals and planning for that. And so if you're interested, we probably need to talk to Jessica right away. I think we have one board member right now. Do we have any others at this time? So you see there, is this part of our policy or just encouragement that board members, if they can, this is about the best opportunity that you can get. I talked to them and they have about 600 participants of the administrators and board members, and we have 200 and some districts. So I think there's in the 280 districts in the state, and I think that right now they have about 200 participants from the districts. So like this information encourages, if there's any possible way, it's a great way to get information, to be prepared to be on the board. So talk to Jess. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, the other is that we have to have a delegate, and I am an alternate. I don't know, Tammy was appointed as the delegate, and I don't know if she's planning on attending or not, but so we'll need to talk about that if there's...
But actually, I think Jess sent an email to the board that you have been designated as a delegate because no other board member had indicated, and technically it did close today, registration. However, should you probably want to go, you can probably still get in, but registration did close.
When I talked, yeah, this week, they said it's going to be last week, and...
So your name has been submitted as a delegate.
Oh, okay. But we need to talk to see if there's anything that they're talking about, how you want me to represent you from that opportunity. So, and they will, but this year, since there's no elections right before the conference, they are preferred to have it submitted as soon as possible. They will, if you need to, if something comes up and you can go, they probably would still accept your registration. Any questions about that? Okay, that's just a discussion item. Next one is 5.4 is superintendent evaluation. Since we don't have our president present, there's information about that, and through the KSB, they have a timeline. There's some things that we need to think about. The deadline that we have is February 15th is when we have our superintendent on a yearly evaluation. Then that's the timeline that we have to, that's the latest that we can submit that. So we have to be prepared. We have to, there's some different things that we should do that we probably should have done before now, but maybe we can continue to talk about it with our president, and maybe need to defer this or move it to another agenda item for next meeting so that we can prepare to have this completed. Is there any other discussion?
Has the board decided on what tool, are we going to use the same tool that was used last year?
We have not decided that, but that needs to be done. That's one of the things on this checklist. Have you seen this? Do you have this?
Yeah, I've seen that. But in all fairness to Superintendent Wilson, I think I'd want to know what the evaluation tool is going to be that I'm going to be evaluated over throughout a year's time. And, you know, and he gets the evaluation tool 2 months before we're going to evaluate, and that's kind of tough hoeing if you don't know what you're going or being evaluated on. And then I see that, and I read the one last time is they're going to ask the superintendent meet his goals. Well, I haven't seen any of those either, and so I don't know what that's about. And another thought that I had was Mr. Wilson was in the process of preparing what happens at this month and this month at this board meetings. I don't understand why this is not a scheduled event during board meetings where we sit down with Mr. Wilson and these are the goals that happen in this board meeting, his final evaluation happens at this. I don't know why it's not a structured deal where we know what's going to happen, and you know this is the end of the race, this is the end of the race, and then we start the next one at this month with, this is going to be the evaluation tool we're going to use, and if we're asking for goals or activities or end services, that should be discussed on month 1 and not month 10 and 11 before we're going to conclude the evaluation.
Well, we may not have to reinvent the wheel because, I mean, this one has, I mean, something we can look at. It says in the first 2 months, there's a self-evaluation, and
Sure.
then
But we're now at, you know,
Yeah.
whatever the date is,
4 months in.
School year. February 15th is our due date. We didn't give him a lot of time to, do goals, match goals, or whatever we're going to evaluate him on, and he doesn't know what tool we're using. I just don't think that's I don't think it's fair.
I agree.
And I think the same thing happened last year because I had just gotten on the board, and I think it was Board Member Bickle asked me what I thought. And I said, you probably ought to develop what evaluation tool we're going to use and what methodologies early on, and like you said, we haven't addressed it. But I also think it needs to be, this is going to happen in this board meeting this month, each and every year, so it's not a surprise and it doesn't get overlooked.
Is there a tool on file, Mr. Wilson?
The tool that I would assume is on file is the tool that's been used the last 3 years.
It's been used 3 years.
And the policy says that we can't change that without input from everybody, including the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
Ron?
Yeah, it sure does.
So you're under the assumption we're using the same one?
Yeah.
Sure.
So where do
I
we?
mean, I'm asking, is that your assumption?
Yeah, I was.
Until
And
we-
and the same evaluation tool has been applied since you've been
Yeah,
employed?
since I've been-
Okay.
And
Are there, do you know if there's other tools or other evaluation?
Yeah, there's lots of other superintendent evaluation, instruments that you could utilize in other places. If that's what the board wants to do, we can probably,
And what are your feelings about the tool that has been used?
I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I mean,
It's okay?
If it's works for the board, it works for me.
Okay.
Is this the one, so Mr. Viner talked about how he had just come on the board when he was asked for that input, and I think when we did come on the board, we were given some of that documentation for, so if we were to go back and look at what we received at that point, we would have another look at the tool.
Sure, yeah, we could get
Okay.
that to you if you'd like to look at it again. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Park?
Yes.
I would like to see that this 5.4 reappear at the next board meeting when our president's here.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we defer this item to our next meeting. Do I have any more discussion? All in favor, say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Mr. Brooks, could we,
It's not
we couldn't hear you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did hear that. I was looking for the vote to come up.
It's not coming
I'll
up.
say yes, I'll go ahead and say it.
Do you have everybody? Okay.
How did it go? Ask for the,
Oh, so
what's the result?
what is the result? All in favor, or what?
Yeah, it
You got it passed. 6-5.
6-0.
6-0.
5.
5-0.
5-0, because, yeah, we have Tammy's. Okay.
I didn't vote.
Oh, abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, we have one abstention. So that's a no vote.
I know.
Okay.
So you have one no, it's.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're looking at number 6, executive session. Mr. Wilson, do we have anything for executive session? Seeing that we don't?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move that we adjourn.
I would like to second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, say yes.
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 All opposed, say no.
No.
What are you doing?